Spinning pole problems. This week's question is coming from Marisa. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that right. Marisa is from my Facebook group, my EBFit Polers group. If you are not part of that group yet, check down below and I'll put a link for that so you can join that group. So Marisa's question is how to train for spinning pole for those of us with vertigo problems. It's a bit more difficult to get used to spinning. Not alone. Lots of people have that issue. Also saying, I realize that getting stronger improves my stamina on the spinning pole, but any training tips would be really appreciated. Okay, so here is my advice that I give to students that have issues with spinning. Everyone's different. Their tolerance with spinning is different. Their tolerance with motion is different. And it varies apparatus to apparatus as well. There are some people that are fine spinning on a pole, but then you put them on a lyre or something else and they have an issue with it. So my recommendation is if spinning makes you dizzy, do it in very small doses. What a lot of people tend to think is, oh, just keep doing it every time and eventually I'll get used to it. The problem is if every time you get on your apparatus of choice, whether it's a pole, lyra, whichever, silks, straps, if you go to the point of feeling nauseous, after a while your brain starts to associate just the thought of spinning or that apparatus with feeling nauseous. Okay, so think about all the Pavlovian dogs studies about, they ring the bell and the dogs start salivating. If you don't know what that is, Google that shit. But if you start to associate spinning with nausea, you don't even have to spin. You'll just think about it, or you'll barely start spinning and you're going to start to get nauseous. So my recommendation would be is every single time that you come in and train or train at home, in the studio, home, whichever, do 1 or 2 spins. If you know that spinning, for an entire pass makes you nauseous, do a half pass and then come down, or maybe just do a couple of climbs and come down. Your goal is to stop before you get nauseous. And then over time, your tolerance will build. Okay. The problem is, like I said, most people tend to just go until they feel nauseous, and you're just perpetuating the problem if that is your issue. So instead, every single time you train, maybe it's a couple of inverts on spin. Maybe it's just as simple as a climb. Maybe it's as simple as going to a pole sit and just hanging out for the count of 10 and coming down. But you know that 10 seconds on the pole spinning makes you nauseous, stop at 8 seconds, okay? And then slowly increase. It could be over 2 weeks, it could be over a month, but get to the point where 8 seconds, after a while, you're like, yeah, no problem. I can spin for 8 seconds. When you start to feel that way, try increasing in very small increments. So try going to 10 seconds, maybe 15 seconds max. And it will vary day to day. I don't usually get dizzy, but I've had moments where either A, if I haven't been on apparatus in weeks at a time, due to traveling or whatever other extraneous variables, or haven't eaten enough, sleep deprivation. There are a lot of other variables that also will impact whether you get nauseous or dizzy. So those variables aside, if you know that vertigo and or nausea, dizziness is an issue for you, incrementally increase from a very small amount. Okay, so try it out, slowly increase. I've had this work with multiple students. I have a student on straps that used to not like to spin, and I told her this exact same thing. She's a ninja on straps spinning now. She's amazed. Like, all the other students are impressed by how fast she spins, and she'll do an entire combo, and it's quite impressive. So it's a matter of training your brain. Our brains have an amazing ability to adapt, but you have to give them time to adapt. If you just throw them into the deep end, well, it sometimes sink and swim, and sometimes we sink. So instead, take your time. Like I said, small increments here and there, and start to develop a positive relationship with the spinning pole. Okay, so that after a while, you associate spinning with fun instead of dizzy. Think about that one alcohol that you've ever thrown up to, or if you've ever had food poisoning, you never want to look at that food again, that type of food that made you sick. It's the same kind of thing. If you start to associate spinning with that nausea, just the thought of spinning will give you that queasy feeling in your stomach. Okay, so your goal is to start associating spinning with fun and accomplishment and pride and what you can do, but slowly, incrementally increase. That would be my advice to you. So best of luck in all of your spinning, and keep on practicing it. Honestly, the only way to get better at spinning pole is just to keep at it. When I first started pole, I did very little spinning pole. I started mostly on static. I think the studio that I was in, I don't know that all the poles even spun. And it wasn't until I'd been doing pole for probably, 6 months a year, I actually went to a spinning pole class in another studio, like an entire class that was on spinning pole. I felt like I was on a boat for the rest of the day. The room didn't stop moving. I felt so nauseous. So for a long time, I had a serious aversion to spinning pole. Now I would say spinning pole is my go-to. If you tell me to do a combo, my default is usually on spin, unless it's something Chinese pole. So you definitely can adapt. You definitely can improve on this. So you got this. Any questions on this thread, go ahead and leave those down below. If you have some other questions totally off topic that you'd like me to answer in a future video blog, feel free to throw those my way, either via email or via the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching.